Well, happy Monday, everybody. Mike Suleiman here, founder of South Jersey Forward. We're a nonprofit think tank and advocacy organization. Really excited to be here to talk about an issue near and dear to our hearts: no North Jersey casinos. And short answer is we're against it. So, spoiler alert, we're against North Jersey casinos. But we really have a great group of experts and business leaders here to talk about it. Wherever you're listening, live, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, please comment your questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, ideas. I want to bring it to our great panel for a great roundtable discussion. And we hope the first of many, right? Clearly, this is an issue near and dear to everybody's heart south of 195. But, we like to think that we're going to show folks, not just for South Jersey, but also Central and North Jersey, why expanding casino gaming is not in anybody's best interest. So we really appreciate you having a conversation here and joining us. Introduce our great panel: Tony Marino, the heavyweight champ, local gaming analyst, been around for quite a while and really a wealth of knowledge. Glenn Davila is the chairman of the Southern New Jersey Development Council, also a marketing and performance PR whiz and all-around good guy. And Marlena Celta, who's the president. So I got my titles mixed up. President of the Southern New Jersey Development Council. And I really appreciate everybody joining on for this conversation. Marlene, let's start with you because, when you and I first spoke about this roundtable discussion, you informed me and educated me that the Development Council really played a big role in 1976 to get the first casino referendum passed and brought us gaming in Atlantic City. So why don't you talk to us about that?
Well, first of all, I need to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about this issue. It's really very important to South Jersey. The Development Council has been involved actually in the early 1970s. Obviously, it was something that we thought was an economic advantage for us in South Jersey. So that's where it began. The Development Council, and I take no credit, by the way, I was not with the organization at the time, but they did work very closely with the formers of the legislation to help draft the legislation, then eventually lobby for the passage of legislation. And on June 2nd, 1977, Governor Byrne signed the legislation at Boardwalk Hall, which I think then was our convention center back in the 70s. So we have a long history. Since then, we've been tracking it, following it, working with the casinos in Atlantic City, working to continue to ensure that gaming is in Atlantic City only, not throughout the state. And that's pretty much where we are even today. So we as an organization oppose a North Jersey effort. We have a lot of reasons, and so do my fellow attendees. So I'm sure we'll get into that. But in the early days, it was very unique to us as an organization, but also a unique concept in terms of viable economic development for the 8 southern counties of New Jersey. So that's how it began.
That's wonderful. Tony, why don't you just give us an overview before we talk about North Jersey casinos? Obviously you study these numbers like nobody's business. So we have 9 casinos right now in Atlantic City. Just I think the March numbers just came in. How are the casinos looking now in April of 2026?
Well, the 9 casinos of Atlantic City are all, of course, performing differently among the group. But as a general group, they are generating fall 2025, they generated just under $6.9 billion. That's a big chunk of change. And roughly almost 3 billion of that, almost about half, was in-person gaming. That is local slot machines as well as table games based in those 9 casinos. The industry is, as a mass, doing quite well. There are some that are struggling. We can get into that later, or maybe not really necessary for the purposes of today's discussion. But the reality is 3 of those casinos are doing extremely well, and they're ready to compete with the best that New York can throw at us. And that's, of course, the Borgata, owned by MGM, the Hard Rock Casino, and the Ocean Casino, which is under joint ownership a group out of New York and a group out of Detroit. Those three casinos are doing real well. In the middle are the three Caesars Entertainment casinos, Tropicana, Harrah's, and Caesars itself, Caesars Boardwalk. They have been kind of struggling recently, but they're still highly profitable and doing well. But unfortunately, Caesars Entertainment right now is under some pressure from the owner of the Gold Nugget, who wants to take the whole organization over. But we'll see what happens on that. And then comes the other three casinos that are small and basically clearly being stressed by certain conditions, and that is resorts, Gold Nugget, and Bally's. So that's in a quick nutshell. The industry, as in general, is doing quite well and remains the second highest concentrated group of casinos in the United States.
Well, talk to us. Clearly, like you said, Tony's second highest concentration. And Glenn, you're the president of performance marketing based in Egg Harbor Township, right outside Atlantic City. So, we think about the casino jobs. I think we all agree, roughly 30,000 direct jobs with the casino industry. But we talk about all these indirect jobs, the ancillary jobs, business that depends on casinos. And clearly, you've done work in this area for quite a long time. Talk to us about the effects that the casino industry has on small businesses like yours and others that are part of the Development Council.
Yeah, well, of course. When you ever have an industry that dominates a region the way that casino gaming dominates Atlantic County, Atlantic, the shore in general, you're going to have a lot of reliance on the type of businesses. Some of my clients, including bakeries, including printing, including signage and production. I mean, all of these businesses that are just they're too specialized for the casinos to roll into their own businesses, so they have to rely on these organizations. So in South Jersey, we find that a lot of businesses live on the casinos. It's important for them to get that kind of investment from the casinos, and seeing the type of danger that we have with potential casinos closing if we were to get North Jersey casinos, which I believe would be the case, could be catastrophic for many of my South Jersey brothers and sisters who own small businesses like mine. The rising tide truly does lift all the boats. That's what we do at the Southern New Jersey Development Council, is we focus on trying to make South Jersey a better place to live and in which to do business. But watching our biggest by far industry evaporate in front of our eyes and move to North Jersey, no matter how far north, whether it be Monmouth County or Bergen County, would be not only painful but catastrophic for those of us left holding the bag.
Yeah, and I think you make up a good point, Glenn. Unfortunately, I just think a lot of folks, North and South, always want to divide us regionally. And we want the whole state to be successful, right? I have friends in Bergen and Monmouth counties, want them to do well. I hope they want us to do well. But when we're trying to cannibalize a casino market, and we had 4 casinos closed 10 years ago, and we were number one in the nation for foreclosures, thousands of jobs lost. If we have that or greater, we're looking at 10, 15, 20,000 jobs lost, number one in the nation for foreclosures. And by the way, I looked at this data, DGE, every county has casino employees. Now, some in Sussex County, maybe 1 or 2, but every county has jobs from the casino industry. So it's very, very important. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. We talked, I joke with folks listening, we had a great conversation before this roundtable started, and that's the real juicy stuff. We should have aired that, right? But, the East Coast Gaming Congress was in town. Anybody can jump on this. Hard Rock, their president, said that as many as 6 casinos could close at minimum, with New York Gaming 25 30% hit, and could be even greater with New York or North Jersey casinos on top of New York casinos. Do we think that's an accurate viewpoint? Do we think that's a conservative estimate? How do we feel about that dire warning from Hard Rock?
Well, let me take that question up. Jim Allen has been kind of saying the same percentages for 2, 3 years now, that New York casinos can take up to 35% of the market of Atlantic City. When you translate that into certain numbers, I think he's talking only about the in-person gaming, because one thing we ought to make very clear, this year, 2026, more than 50% of all the revenue passing through New Jersey's 9 casinos are through digital gaming. That is, it's sports wagering done by telephone rather than in person, and also iGaming, which is now in 2026 is going to be the more than 50% of the revenue raised here in New Jersey. That that market can't be lost in New York because by law you have to be inside New Jersey hitting that button to either get put a bet on a horse race or put a bet on the sports booking or whatever. It just has to be somebody in the state of New Jersey. So when he talks 35% of the market, he has to be talking about what I call the brick and mortar market, the slot machines and table games of Atlantic City. And that is a major hit, taking 35% of roughly $3 billion of the roughly $7 billion that is earned last year here in the state. So we have to focus on the numbers. And I think Jim is being a little bit overly cautious in putting out that number.
Well, that's not good. I mean, Marlene, you talk to a lot of casino executives, and obviously do a lot in the business community here in Southern New Jersey. And it's we can control what we can control, right? We can't control New York gaming. We certainly control whether gaming is extended outside of Atlantic City. But what are you hearing from folks in the industry that obviously they're concerned about New York, but really concerned about North Jersey?
Well, it's interesting because we're not hearing much. So that's the part that makes me a little nervous. Usually, if there is a consensus of opinion, it's well known, but things are pretty quiet. So you wonder what interests do some casinos have in the North Jersey effort at Monmouth Park and at the Meadowlands. Who knows? We think we know, but there's never anything that's spelled out so clearly for us. So when we think in terms of how do we engage our community in South Jersey to fight this fight, you really have to look at the casino industry, particularly the Casino Association, and see what signals they're sending out so that whatever efforts we have, and actually it's mostly hard work, it's certainly not tons and tons of money spent on a campaign, but whatever effort we have needs to be signaled by, I think, the industry itself. And I'm not sure I know where they are collectively.
Yeah.
I mean, you do hear from one casino or another that I think it was Hard Rock that said, no, they have no interest in that. But where is resorts? I mean, we know that they're in New York. And
Can I pick that point up, if I may?
Please do.
In the 2016 referendum, resorts, their majority owner, Morris Bailey, his wife contributed $750,000 to the No North Jersey casinos. Morris Bailey remains the majority owner of resorts, but he's now in partnership with the fellow that operates Monmouth Park. And he all of a sudden, it seems to be having one foot in the Monmouth Park attempt to get a casino. And he has said nothing yet about what is happening. Is he going to support resorts down here? So that's an interesting question you raised, Marlene. What will be the position of resorts if we go to a full referendum for casinos at the two racetracks?
Well, and you bring up a good point, Tony and Marlene. To your point, Glenn, you deal with a lot of small businesses throughout South Jersey, and how are they looking at this summer, this fall coming up with New York gaming coming online? You talk about the bakeries, the AC Linens, the vendors. I mean, is it business as usual? Are they starting to cut back a little bit? Hopefully, they're increasing work for small businesses, but if they're hurting, then it's less work for your firm and other companies that really depend on that business, particularly in the summer, to make ends meet.
I think we're seeing a false flag, Michael. With you've got the World Cup coming, you got the All-Star Game in Philadelphia, the U.S. Open in Philadelphia, and the 250th. I think we can't see past summer 2026. I think we see summer 2026 and we see visions of sugar plums dancing in our heads, and it's going to be a wonderful summer, and we're really excited. We've got our brand new air show that's coming out in I believe that's the last week of May or first week of June, or right around Memorial Day. It's a wonderful time to be in Atlantic County at the shore. It's going to be great. And then what happens if we hit November and we have a referendum that rips? I don't know if it's 6 casinos, but I certainly think it's 3 casinos easily could close from a change like this, and that could be 4,000 jobs. 4,000 jobs if it was just resorts, Golden Nugget, and Bally's at the bottom of the barrel. If they all just off the top of if we just want to not be alarmist, we're talking about 3,982 total employees gone. Exactly. And this is in the county with the 4th highest unemployment rate in the state. Moving to the 2 counties that have the lowest unemployment rate in the state, being Bergen and Monmouth County. Now, I know it's a little more complicated than that, and people live all over the place, but the majority of our Atlantic City employees live in Atlantic County, and you'll see that happen in those other counties too, is my suspicion.
Well, one of the things I think we want to break down too, I mean, we have this argument from folks, and, we really need to just this facade that, well, New York gaming is coming online, 2 in the Queens, 1 in the Bronx. We've got downstate casinos. We need northern New Jersey casinos to help take that gambling business back from New York into New Jersey. But if you put it on Google Maps, folks, those casinos are probably 30 to 60 minutes on a good day to the Meadowlands, and probably an hour 15 from there to Monmouth Park, which, by the way, is the same distance from driving time from Monmouth Park to Atlantic City. So it's absurd to think that somehow we're going to take business away when it's not like it's right across the river. By the time especially you take public transportation to get to the Meadowlands isn't easy, as our friends, quite frankly, with the World Cup are going to find out, which is another story for another day, right? I just think what FIFA's doing is terrible. That's me talking, not talking for the panel, but I don't think we'll have a World Cup anytime soon in New Jersey. But what do you make of this argument, folks, that we're going to recoup gaming dollars? To me, it just where's the beef? I don't see hear a whole lot of sizzle, but I don't see a whole lot of steak.
Well, the point I just made recently, they can't possibly get it'll be by the end of this year, almost 60% of all of our revenues, because that's digital revenues. You have to be in New Jersey to gamble that. So you can't go to New York and gamble New Jersey iGaming revenues. It's impossible. So we're only talking about our in-person brick and mortar gaming. And that's still a big chunk of change. It used to be $5.2 billion at peak in the year 2006. Last year it was just under $3 billion. This year it should go over the $3 billion mark. And that's a lot of money. But to lose 35% of that, I see as almost impossible. And they're exaggerating the impact of New York on Atlantic City. The problem is, and that's what George Goldhoff, the current CEO of Hard Rock, was speaking about when he said, if we get both casinos in North Jersey and the existing casinos we know we will have in New York, that would be a tsunami on top of an earthquake. And that's what motivated him. He's the author of the comment, 6 casinos could be lost. So we have to take that seriously when he says that, the tsunami on top of an earthquake. And I think our job, led by Mike in this situation, is to stop that half of that. The tsunami that will be created by North Jersey casinos never happens.
Yeah. And I think, feel free to weigh in, Marlene and Glenn. I think we dodged a bullet with Manhattan casinos. What's the line? I won't break my arm trying to pat myself on the back, but we issued an op-ed from South Jersey Forward a year ago talking about how Manhattan casinos aren't going to happen, right? There was one proposed right next to the UN, another one on Coney Island. It wasn't going to happen, right? So, that was a big bullet dodging for us here in South Jersey. However, to your point, Tony, can we withstand the New York casinos? Again, you've got the Resorts World at the racetrack up there. You've got the Steve Cohen project that's probably years away from actually being built, and then Bally's, which is in the Bronx, I believe. So, we've got time to kind of prepare for that mini tsunami, so to speak. But clearly we have a beach. They don't, right? We are more of a tourist area than that. I mean, what do you see, Marlene, in terms of the effects of New York casinos, which obviously it's going to hurt our market, but we've been through this before in Pennsylvania in '06. I mean, how are we dealing with that, in the years to come?
Well, we just keep saying that this is not an expansion of that particular economic driver. It's just redistributing of that driver. So, what happens to a bunch of things? As an example, this morning I was speaking with the Atlantic City Chamber of Commerce and the Cape May County Chamber of Commerce. Um, just updating them on what you're doing, Mike, and they're fully on board and in agreement with the opposition to this effort. But I think it was might have been Danielle from the Atlantic City Chamber who brought to my mind, which I had never thought of, when these jobs are lost, and they will be, people vacate their homes and move to where jobs are. And that creates a tax burden, I would guess, on the county and or the municipality that they're moving from. So have we thought this thing all the way through to the very end? What's the impact on the tax structure in the county? What's the impact on, as an example, Stockton State College or Atlantic Cape Community College? They have huge programs that support the industry. So where do these kids go now? So they come out of school, they have a pathway, or they think they have a career pathway, and maybe they don't. So it's so encompassing that the more you talk about it, and again, this morning when we were talking virtually, similar to what we're doing now, it has an impact on almost everything. It's not just tourism, which people automatically think, and it's not just jobs. Of course, it is primarily. That's what's in your mind, but it has a ripple effect, and that's the point we keep trying to make. And how successful we're going to be depends on starting with us and then growing this coalition beyond, which we've started to do, and we'll talk more about it, I think, later in the program, at least what our efforts have been.
Sure. Well, Glenn, you're a PR and marketing whiz, in terms of, not being able to see those ripple effects. I mean, do you agree with that, people just think, or let's say people think they're in, Western South Jersey, they're in Camden and Gloucester County and Burlington. Hey, we're South Jersey, but we're pretty far away. It's not going to affect us. Some of these economic, obviously, right here in Atlantic, where I live and where Tony lives, it's ground zero for us, right? But for the rest of South Jersey, even Central Jersey. I mean, do you see? Can we get through that message from a PR perspective of, hey, this is bad for the entire state, not just one county. It's for all 21 counties. It's pretty dire.
It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. If you think about, first of all, this is now the fourth time, if you want to count Delaware, that we have been that our gaming monopoly has been infringed upon. If you go all the way back to the original East Coast competition being Connecticut, we saw that. And if you think about what New York, getting back to the New York impact, New York gets casinos. We are not seeing the kind of traffic flow from the northern and eastern part of New York because it's easier for them to get to Connecticut than it is to get to Atlantic City. So why would, and Connecticut's got everything that Atlantic City has, and maybe even some more other than multiple options. So we see that, down in Salem County, they can get to Dover just as quickly as Camden County can get to Philadelphia. So I think the reality is we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect New Jersey. And see this for the bad idea that it is. And this is, I mean, look, there are other bad ideas in history. My favorite comes, Prohibition was a referendum that was just plain a bad idea, right? And so we repealed that in 15 years or so. Are we going to be making that kind of mistake again? And there are others, Alaska in 1996. A quick search that they called it Alaska Ballot Measure 2, if in case anybody remembers, where they tried to move the capital from Juneau to Alissa. And of course, after everybody got all excited about the move, they were like, wait a minute, it's going to be expensive? So, we need to not let the voters, if this becomes a referendum issue, to not let the voters be excited by the shiny object of, oh my God, all of these jobs in North Jersey, because we're really just slicing the pie into smaller pieces. We're not creating more. We didn't create more gaming when Connecticut came online, nor when upstate New York, nor Philadelphia, nor Delaware. Haven't we seen enough to know that this is just going to be squeezing Atlantic City further? We want to do that to ourselves? It's insane.
No, it's ridiculous. And Tony, we keep hearing from the North again that somehow that there's going to be all this revenue from these North Jersey casinos coming down here as a lifeline, right? And some of the numbers you're hearing, if we can get $500 million a year to Atlantic City. I mean, do we really think North Jersey casinos are going to be that profitable? Let's be honest. You pointed out
there's little chance that they will be, because I mean, right now, if you look at what Meadowlands is proposing and what Monmouth Park is proposing, they're really just talking about slot parlors, almost street corner slot parlors. They're not going to be elegant. At Meadowlands, they're not even talking about building a hotel. How can they get high rollers who want to play table games and spend $10,000 put in the cage, ready to gamble in the next hour? They're not going to sit in a dinky little casino like that. So they're calling for really half measures. What they want to do is open the door, try to get at least the slot machines. That's what I think the real game is. And if it is, it's a losing game. It's a silly game. It's frankly a stupid game in terms if you understand the casino industry. It's not going to be successful, but what it does is threatens to break the constitutional monopoly granted to Atlantic City in the 1976 referendum, codified by the 1977 Casino Control Act. And that's what's at line here. Marlene has been through that fight in 76. I was on scene in 76. I hate to admit it. That makes me pretty old. But I worked with Steve Persky in the past. In fact, in 1975, I happened to be sitting in a room when he first broached the subject that we're coming back with another referendum next year in 76. And we all sat there saying, Steve, do you think you're going to really pull that off? Well, he did. And what he did was create a situation along with a lot of other people like Marlene and a lot of business organizations like this Southern New Jersey Development Council that really have put together almost 50 years of a vigorous casino organization here that has suffered some problems. We once had almost 50,000 employees at peak in 2006. We're now down to correct a little bit your number, Mike, we're down to 22,000 as of the end of the year. And that's where we've been sitting for the last 2 years, approximately 22,000 employees. And I think if three casinos close here, Glenn, you mentioned all the correct numbers. Approximately 4,000 jobs would be lost, so we'd be down to 18,000 employees. And if God forbid we lost three more casinos, we would be down to about 10,000 employees, and that would be a real blow to this area. And that's why all the public officials, the business officials, the business organizations here in South Jersey have to really take this threat seriously.
Yeah, and one of the things that's been striking to me, I've been thinking about it over the past few days, preparing for this, and I joke just having no life and dealing with public policy all the time. It just clearly there's a push by folks up north, and historically, as we talked before we got on, how Garral's hurting, right? He's been hurting financially for quite a while, and the racetrack industry is hurting. Monmouth Park and the Meadowlands are hurting, but not to sound like like the capitalist that I am. But is it really the state of New Jersey's job to subsidize the racetrack industry? I mean, clearly people aren't going to the horses like they did 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, I told one of the sponsors recently, if you need a casino at Monmouth Park, then you got bigger problems, right? So, what is it a sense where the legislators are kind of behind the times where, like to your point, Tony, everybody's gambling on here. Are people going to racetracks? If they were, the Atlantic City Racecourse would still be open, right? The Cherry Hill Racetrack would still be open.
Atlantic City.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, people aren't seeing the horses anymore, folks. And why are we subsidizing this industry? So,
Well, we are, in fact. The governor mentioned that last year the casinos, he said casinos and racetracks actually generated $1.1 billion in state taxes, but only 90 million of that came from the racetrack industry. The casino industry generated about $918 million in direct taxes. And then there were other kind of programs that brought in about another $90 million in taxes associated with the casino industry. So it's the casino industry which is the driver of those state taxes that come from gambling, not the racetracks. And even if they were to be given casinos, it would be unlikely that they would only raise their contribution by maybe 10% of the total for the entire state. So it's really a gamble to try to turn in to try to give the racetracks more room to gamble, because they prove that they can't produce it in terms of their own industry. They are doing a good job in sports wagering, however, at the Meadowlands, because they happen to partner with the best agency that generates that, FanDuel. That's the real number one driver of sport wagering income, and that happens to be associated with the Meadowlands. DraftKings is associated with resorts, and that's the second best generator of that kind of revenue. So when you get to the granular level of where the income is being produced and how it affects taxes in the state of New Jersey, by opening up more gambling at the racetrack, you're really putting at risk the $918 million that were generated by the 9 casinos last year against only the 90 million that came out of the racetrack industry.
And we all know, and then we got a question. I appreciate everybody watching. Send us your questions, comments, thoughts. We'll tackle one in a second. But to your point, Tony, as we all know, the casino revenue from Atlantic City has funded a lot in the state of New Jersey. Not only the Casino Revenue Fund, but also for years and years, infrastructure projects all over the state, which in hindsight was probably a big error by policymakers. Should have always stayed in Atlantic City. But NJ Pack in Newark and other projects funded by casino dollars. Marcella on YouTube has a comment. The risks of new casinos in North Jersey are clear. What's the strategy to diversify Atlantic City's economy and reduce reliance on gaming beyond aviation? I'd love to hear the forward-looking view. Anyone want to take a crack at that comment from Marcella? And Marlene or Glenn, any comments from perspective from the Development Council?
Well, I think that Glenn has some firsthand experience through the Atlantic County Economic, help me, Glenn.
Alliance.
And what they're doing to diversify the economy and, in fact, the entire business community. But that's just a little part of it. When you really stop and think about it, we've been talking about diversification of the economy in Atlantic City for years. We just don't have the leadership in Atlantic City that can get it done. And it may be slightly better now that the state is involved, but it takes some visionaries, and dare I mention our dear friend Jim Whalen. It takes that kind of a person that can see the whole picture and put some muscle into it. And I'm just convinced that if Atlantic City were to grow the way we had already hoped it would have grown, the county would have followed. And I think ACA is doing some of that, but obviously it can't do all of it. So, and Glenn, you do some things for ACEA, particularly around the aviation field.
Yeah, Lauren Moore's team at the ACEA Aviation, of course, being the big tied to the FAA Tech Center. Atlantic City Airport has its own issues at the moment with Spirit Airlines. So it is a smack on a smack as we deal with those items in Atlantic County. The film ready Atlantic County is becoming a haven. South Jersey is becoming a haven for film production with what we've got going on in Picatinny Arsenal up in Fort Monmouth, where Netflix is building Fort Monmouth, right? Where Netflix is building their new facility, their new film studio. Atlantic County has come a long way But we're really as you all know, or certainly Marlene knows, economic development doesn't happen overnight. And that organization is now creeping up on 10 years old, and 10 years in economic development is glacial. I mean, it's a slow moving business to build that kind of economic development. It's happening. NERTP, National Aerospace Research and Technology Park, getting ready to open their second building, which is great. Bringing in large, we're talking like Peraton sized organizations coming to the county. Sorry, still aviation based, but still a very big deal. So Atlantic County is doing what it can, but it's really hard to replace that giant 800-pound gorilla sitting in the middle of Atlantic City, which is casino gaming. Even tourism, we'll just start to choke without Atlantic City. And think about an Atlantic City that is covered with Atlantic clubs. I mean, think about what our boardwalk is going to look like if you lose 4 casinos on the boardwalk. What's going to happen in the center of our boardwalk if you lose Caesars, Bally's, and you already have the pier as a giant? I saw on Facebook the other day, another random blogger discovered the empty mall in Atlantic City and did another walkthrough, which, by the way, any of us can do. It's open all the time. But you want to talk about a rotting carcass in the middle of a city? Why try 3 of them? This is a bad idea on many fronts.
Yeah, I don't want just add a little bit to that. We also have 3 empty parking garages that once were belonging to casinos. The one that was at the Sands, that's there, still a hulking garage. We have the garage that was with the AC Hilton down near the Atlantic City campus of Stockton University. And the one that was part of the Trump Plaza. That occasionally will open for activity at Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall, but they have to put up signs and say elevators do not work. And Glenn, you just mentioned, add another 3 or 4 empty properties in the center of town, and we have real problems. So we have to prevent that from happening, and that's why, Mike, you've helped to bring us together. And now, I would suggest in the next 20 minutes or so that we have, what's the next step? I want to turn to the business leaders. Marlene, who in the business community is ready to join you and Glenn in maybe taking the lead along with Mike and trying to organize this opposition group?
Well, thanks for asking. That is the best softball that I probably will ever get.
Okay.
When Mike and I first talked probably a month ago, we put our heads together in the office and with Glenn and our leadership team, and began, even in some small ways, but every legislator in South Jersey already has a letter that is very clear about where we stand in terms of maintaining Atlantic City gaming only in New Jersey. The governor also has that letter. Some of our congressional representatives have received the letter. We are meeting with as many chambers of commerce as we can. This morning, 2 of them, Atlantic City Chamber, Cape County Chamber. We're meeting with the tourism associations again this morning. Cape and Cumberland's Tourist Association has signed on to, I offered Mike's coalition. I hope that's okay, Mike. But we certainly will participate. But as I think Glenn mentioned, it should be done with one voice and not fragmented. So we're trying to gather that kind of support on the small scale level. We know that if it's a full-blown campaign, it's going to be tons of big 8-pound gorillas with big, deep pockets. And that's always a problem because North Jersey always has the ability to outspend us. So we know that's there. But we are speaking with our legislative delegation. They have signed a letter, districts 1 through 10, that, and I think one legislator out of District 30, they have gone on record as opposing gaming outside of Atlantic City. So right now it's the small steps, but down the road, in fact, we did some math today. Um, I didn't. The office did some math. It's 3/5 of both the Assembly and the Senate that need to agree on a ballot question. And that means we need 32 out of the Assembly to oppose the effort. And we need 24 out of 16 out of the 24 Senate seats that are there. I'm
That's
talking
great.
3/5 of the total, not the total, 3/5 of the total. That's a stretch. That means we have to get into North Jersey and find a few who are in agreement with diluting the effort of the industry, which is really, as Tony said many times, it dilutes it to the point that it hurts the entire state. So what's gained on a very small scale, my judgment, in the Meadowlands and in Monmouth County does not outweigh the loss. And Tony put the numbers on it very nicely. So that's where we are. Small steps right now, but as FIFA is behind us and the legislature begins to focus on this, we're going to try to outrun them and beat up the clock, because whether it's the end of June or August 3rd, whichever those dates are actual, we don't know. But that's a short amount of time for them to get their act together, although I have to believe they're already working on it. But it's also a short time frame for us. So we need to be working now. And in some small ways we are, but there's much more to do.
Well, I think, unfortunately for my friends in the North, I mean, you look at the Meadowlands hurting. I mean, frankly, it's not like American Dream's doing tremendous. I mean, they haven't. When's the last time they made a mortgage payment? Right? It's been 20 years. Xanadu. So the transit problems are going to have with the FIFA. They had it with the Super Bowl. I mean, clearly, again, is that going to be a successful casino or not? I have my doubts. But the other thing too, and I say this, someone I lived in Atlantic County my entire life, born and raised here. Mom worked at Sands, dad worked at the Taj. So I was raised on a casino income household. To the person's point earlier about diversifying the economy, the issues that we talked about when we legalized casino gaming, diversifying the economy, clean and safe Atlantic City, creating jobs, are literally the same issues we were talking about 50 years later, which frustrates the hell out of me as a resident here. I mean, are we better off with casinos than without? Of course we are. But have we made a whole lot of progress to fix Atlantic City, Atlantic County? Not really, folks. We haven't. And this idea that if Monmouth Park and the Meadowlands are going to look at a casino and say, well, this is going to be the panacea to fix our problems, they're woefully mistaken. And sadly, in a cruel irony, I would argue, Atlantic City is the example of that, right? I mean, we still can't get streets paved, and we're still overly reliant. I'm glad ACA with the aviation is good, especially given the tech center, and that's 4,000 jobs, direct and indirect, right there. But at least for us, and I would say too, by the way, there's 22 other towns in Atlantic County, right? So, how are we going to diversify that economy? Because we haven't over the past 40 years. And, maybe this is the wake-up call. We defeat this referendum. North Jersey comes online. We've got to diversify, get our act together. And I'll just end with this, Glenn. I'll end my rant here. Netflix is getting up to $400 million in tax credits for Fort Monmouth. Netflix doing very well. I've seen the press releases. I don't think they need that many tax credits. Down here, what is Atlantic County getting? I think in the budget we got $500,000 for a local PAL organization. No disrespect to that PAL organization, but give us $40 million in tax credits. Take 10% of the tax credits from Netflix and do some great stuff. Help Lauren and Howard at the research park. Do some other things like that to actually diversify this economy. So part of it too, to your point, Marlene, there is I would argue, a void of leadership down here. That's not picking on either political party. If anything, I'll pick on both political parties for that. But we clearly need to get our act together, and maybe this referendum will finally force us to do so. Somebody jump in. That's the rant.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Look, Atlantic City had been making some strides.
And they are, sure.
Let's use strides as a good, Tennessee Avenue, the Orange Loop has become what they envisioned, what we'd hoped it would be. Of course, it took probably 20 years longer than it should have. But we're here, and it's starting to feel better. You're starting to see Pauline's Prairie is eventually going to happen, right? Something's going to happen up there. What is basically the last strip of undeveloped livable space on the East Coast along the ocean, right? Is in that space between the inlet and Ocean Casino. I think there's a ton of opportunity in what's happening in Atlantic City, and you can tell that just by looking around it. You can't live in Ventnor anymore. You can't find affordable properties in Ventnor or Brigantine, which were the last havens for those people who were looking for affordability at the shore. So Atlantic City is what's left. Atlantic City is the last piece, and you've got, Visit AC is doing a nice job of changing the way they do things, and getting better awareness regionally to try to build what's happening and strengthen our convention and our convention business for the convention center. Yes, there's work to be done, but this is where we are. And look, the guys in North Jersey and in Monmouth County and in Bergen County are fools if they think that this casino, that this Dover, Delaware slot parlor is going to save either of their properties. It's ridiculous. It's just going to kill all three. Yeah. And so this, instead of being silly and trying to save two dying white elephants, why don't we save Atlantic City and make it the anchor that it always should have been?
I'll kick it over to Tony, but I had to look because in the article in the press, the head of the Resorts World Casino actually said, hey, the vast majority of our customers are coming from Queens and Brooklyn. So this idea that they're taking a whole swath of customers from northern New Jersey, they admit that it's not the case. It's really from
that's not what they intend to do. And just Queens and Brooklyn are 5 million people, so they really don't have to go outside of those two boroughs because they have a gigantic market to develop there. And as we all have indicated, the problem will not be New York. I mean, number one, it's guaranteed there's going to be 3 full-service casinos. 2 of them, however, are still almost 4 years in the future. So they're not an immediate problem. Resorts World already missed its own self-imposed deadline. They were supposed to open live table games in March, and they missed that deadline. Now they're saying April. They're going to open live table games with no real way of getting high rollers to come there because there's nowhere to stay. They haven't yet begun the full build out of what they claim will be ultimately a $4 billion operation out there. So the problem is not New York. We have to focus on North Jersey. Let's make sure North Jersey doesn't make, I think, a fool's attempt to have casinos in the next year by going for the super majorities that you were talking about, Marlene, this year. I don't think they can accomplish it this year. So I think at the worst, we're looking at a 2027 referendum for that issue. And that's more of a pressing issue than across the river in New York. So I think the business community, with you two folks are involved in, have to take the leadership, maybe away from the political people who have yet to sown, other than that letter that, again, Marlene, I've just learned listening to you that you helped organize. So it really was the business community leading in that thing and bringing them along. But let's see, we'll get more traction out of them, perhaps as a result of this 1 hour that we've gotten together. I have the numbers. I'm willing to, I'm a resource person. I'm fully retired. I have no desire to become a consultant, but I can always be invited to a meeting. I'd be happy to attend with my set of numbers and talk about how we make this a reality. Glenn, you're in the marketing. I think the first thing we have to talk about is maybe a poll. Somebody pay for a poll to see what our poll will prove versus the fake one that just came out by the casino industry, where they're claiming 60% of the people in New Jersey say they would be happy to have more casinos, especially in North Jersey. Fairleigh Dickinson did one a couple of weeks ago that said, well, at best it's 50%. And I think some more polling, once the issue gets focused in their mind, will tell us a little more. So, there's a number of things. There are people with experience in prior referendum movements. There are people that know marketing like Glenn. There are folks in the business community like ACEA that you mentioned, the 2 chambers of commerce that serve this area. Those people take the lead, force the politicians to be friendly with each other rather than battle. and maybe we'll get something done in the next 6 months.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and if Glenn, if we're, you're a PR guy, you and I are knocking on doors in Bloomfield, and we're in East Orange, we're in Essex County,
Yeah.
and they want casinos. We all agree this would devastate our economy, cost jobs, cost investment. We didn't even talk about the disastrous effect it would have on conventions and trade shows. We'd lose on those hotel rooms. Like, guys, like, Visit AC goes out of business, like, just bad, right? Might as well close the convention center, tear it down.
As well.
Yeah, it's toast. But if you and I are knocking on doors in North Jersey, we're trying to get the vote out and say, hey, or standing outside a shop right up there and say, hey, here's why you should be against North Jersey casinos, even though you live and work in North Jersey. What do you say to those folks?
I think Yeah, I think the first thing that they need to understand is this fallacy of the new money. We already know. We've seen it for the first casinos, the first out of state casinos on the East Coast was 93, 92, 93 Connecticut. We already saw this movie. We don't need it. We don't need Rotten Tomatoes to tell us how it ends. We already know how it ends. It's the same piece, it's the same pie, it's the same gaming pie that we've always had. And North Jersey needs to understand that. They see this money and they think there's opportunities for all of these great jobs, all of this great tax revenue. It's all false. None of it's going to happen. And what's going to happen is they're going to leave this rotting carcass of Atlantic City behind. And then the state's going to have to support it even more than it does now. I think DCA is spending money on Atlantic City now. Watch what happens when you lose 6 pilots. I mean, that entire county is going to be in trouble, and the state's going to have to pick it up. So they're going to cut open the golden goose, take out what they can, divvy it up to Monmouth and Bergen County, who by all accounts don't even need it the way we do. And then they're going to have to spend all of that state revenue supporting Atlantic City that they just shot and left for dead on the side of the road. None of that makes any sense. And then the other thing that I think we can say to our brothers up in North Jersey, our neighbors up in North Jersey, is who really benefits from North Jersey casinos. It's not the people. It's not taxes. It's not employees. Employees, they're gonna make employees at $18 an hour. They're not gonna make any money for slot attendants and EVS workers. This is not what they think it is. Look, those of you and all of you have been around Atlantic City. I cut my teeth in Atlantic City. My first job out of college, my first full-time job out of college was at resorts, handing out player cards on the casino floor, which was an experience. I didn't even have a whole tuxedo. I had a vest, right? Because I wasn't cool enough to have a whole jacket. And I remember going to graduate school after Atlantic City, after working in Atlantic City, and people in other parts of the country were like, that's not a real business. This is a real business. So we support lives here, entire communities here. And so we can't look at this and think that it's some fancy glittery thing that we can just move around because we feel like it. This is almost 50 years worth of hard work here. And maybe it's not what we'd hoped it would be. And maybe it doesn't make as much as we'd like it to. And maybe there's more work to be done, but picking up and moving the pieces around the board this way isn't going to help anybody. It's just going to hurt us. And they're not even going to feel the effects up there. It's just
wonderfully spoken. What it reminded me, Glenn, you're already putting together the equivalent of what Marlene will remember, the crack committee. Remember the crack committee? And there are 9 points, or was it 8? 8 or 9 points of why casinos only in Atlantic City would benefit the state. And Glenn, inadvertently, you're too young to remember or know what that crack committee did. Marlene and I do. And they came up with a good approach to how to convince the entire voting public of the state of New Jersey, casinos only in Atlantic City, and that message should remain the same. We don't need them at racetracks up north.
Well,
very well spoken. Yeah, go for it, Marlene.
I would suggest that before we go knocking on doors, and we may have to do that, we need to knock on the doors of 16 senators and 32 assembly people that are up north, which might be a little easier, and convince them that this is a bad idea.
Well,
so Marlene,
there's really 2 doors that really should be knocked on: governor and the president of the Senate. Okay, the president of the Senate, when in 2016 voted in favor of the referendum that would legitimize casinos up north, but he never really seemed to support it. He just said so. Anyway, so the current president of the Senate has to be talked to, the current head of the assembly, and the governor. What's the governor's position? When she was campaigning down here, and remember Mario Cuomo's comment, you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. Well, her poetry on the Scott Cronick show on WOND, she said, "Oh, I'm dead set against casinos up north. They should only be in Atlantic City." Let's hold her to that promise.
Well, it is our information that the governor's office is, quote, open-minded, unquote.
Yes, you're right.
Well, we don't want her to be open-minded. We want her to say no. And maybe that's our tagline, just say no. Borrow that from.
There you
Can we
go.
trademark that?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I'll put a plug in too. So we have a website, stopnorthjerseycasinos.com. There's a feature on there. You can actually, wherever you are in the state, you type in your address. You can, it'll pre-draft an email for you to send to your senator and your two assembly people, and particularly those in northern New Jersey, central New Jersey. I think it's important to kind of get that message across. You can also request a Stop North Jersey Casinos bumper sticker. We'll mail it to you. We're a little behind, so I apologize. I've already gotten about 60 of them out so far, so we're a little behind, but we're going to get them out this week. I promise everybody. And to your point, Tony and Marlene, I think clearly, the more outreach, the better. Everybody listening who will watch this after the fact, put something on your social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Put something, even if you record a vertical video of yourself saying, "Hey, I'm against this. Here's why." I think kind of that, all hands on deck approach, emailing the legislative leaders, Tony, like you said, is important. I'm glad our Southern delegation on both sides put out a letter. That's good. I would agree with Marlene. That's a good start. That's not a finish. That's a start. We need them to do a lot more, frankly. And look, again, the casinos are going to have to bankroll a campaign. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We ripped the curtain off here at South Jersey Ford. They're going to have to fund the campaign right now. I would, to Tony's point, I would slightly disagree. I don't think it'll be up in 27. From what I'm hearing, I don't think the legislature wants to be up the same year that the referendum is up. So I think we're looking either 26 or 28. I think given the push for it, I think it's 26. This is the year they're going to try to do it. Maybe 28, you have a presidential election, it'll be higher turnout. But by then, look, how are you going to continue that momentum? Is Corral going to be funding more polls between now and 28? So I think if we're going to put a heart in this dagger, this Dracula, this Frankenstein, I think this is the year to do it, right? And again, Marlene says it's going to cost a lot of money. There's a whole lot better things we could spend that money on to help people. 30 mil on each side to fund a campaign, 60, 50, $60 million. It's a horrible use of resource. Because I think, Glenn, or Tony, you pointed out the polling for Fairleigh Dickinson. There were similar numbers in 2016 and ended up failing 80-20, right? So do I think it'll be a little closer? Probably. But if it's still going to fail, why are we going to waste all this money? The only ones that make money are the consultants and the contractors and the corporations, and hopefully Glenn. I want to throw Glenn's first.
Well, I would hate to say it's going to fail. We're not going to do anything and find out that it passed.
Oh, exactly.
That would be quite painful. And look, and Tony's right on the nose. And Michael and I and Marlene and I have had conversations about trying to motivate let's call it grassroots, although it needs to be much bigger than grassroots, an effort, some kind of a way for us to bring together enough of our power in our corporations, enough of our power in our educational institutions, enough in our power in our governmental institutions, bringing everybody together to speak with that one voice, because marketing is very simple and it's all about frequency and consistency. That's it, right? I mean, marketing, we're just trying to say the same message over and over and over again until we can get the audience to agree with us. And I think we need to do that. And we're talking about that. And Tony, we're going to have some kind of a grassroots effort to put that together so that we can come up with what are the messages, right? And there are people out there way smarter than me who can help us put that together with the data that we need, data like you have, Tony, Marlene, contacts like you have, Michael with contacts like you have, and bringing together a whole group of individuals from South Jersey and hopefully some from at least Central Jersey, if you believe such a thing exists, to try to talk about, what does it really mean to defend South Jersey casinos? What does it really mean to this state, to the individual counties, and what will it cost them if it goes the other way? I think they'll find that the price tag is way higher than they suspect. and it will end up hurting everybody. So, we will have, and I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner, some kind of an announcement where we're going to start talking about how we coordinate, how we put together, how we put our heads together, and we start coming up with the messages and the strategies, and the voice, the volume that we need to make sure that Trenton hears us loud and clear, that this is not, we're not going to let this go. We're not going to wait and see what happens in November. We're not going to allow a referendum to come and go without fighting against it. And look, we may lose. And well, if we lose, we lose, but at least we're going to go down swinging. And I'm not going to go down without a fight.
Very well said. Well, this was great, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate it. I think to Glenn's point, stopnorthjerseycasinos.com. Again, you can find us SouthJerseyForward.org. We want to stay in touch. This is the first of many conversations and outreach we're going to do on this. And just to go around, Tony Marino, how can folks find you, connect with you? I know you're always on Don Williams and putting out emails. How can folks connect with you if they want to learn more about your analysis, see what you're up to? How can they connect with you?
Well, I have a blog I put out, but it's by invitation only. Just people who I know are really involved in the issue, about 150 people. We'll talk about how people, if they want to talk to me, how they can get to me. I'm a little fidgety. I'm totally retired, and I like being retired. So I'll give effort, but I don't want to talk to everybody that happens to want to ask a question. So I'll leave myself with that.
Well, Glenn will help you. We'll get you a Substack so that people.
You got it. We'll take care of you, Tony. You'll be an international expert in no time. I promise.
Yeah. Glenn, how can folks learn more about performance marketing aside from your roles as chair of the Development Council? How can folks connect with you, learn more about you and your firm?
Yeah, so you can find our firm, Performance Marketing, at callpm.com, CALLPM.com, and you can I post every day on LinkedIn, lots of great content on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Please connect with me there. Lots of opportunities for us to talk, and we're going to find LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and all those places. We're going to find social medias where we're going to get this word out. This is going to be a huge piece of what we do to fight the scourge of North Jersey casinos.
Amen. It's funny. It's funny. I never used to post on LinkedIn. I'm like, this is lame. And then you post something, the amount of likes and comments you get, I'm like, good Lord, I've been missing out this whole time. It just
the whole time.
It's become it's such a great. It's not as fun as TikTok, so to speak, but it is a great tool to get your message out, and especially in the business community. Marlene, how can folks learn more about the Southern New Jersey Development Council? How they can connect with you, and hopefully some business owner watches says, you know what, I'm going to join the Development Council. How can they connect?
I like that idea. Yeah. So it's very easy. Marlene at snjdc.org. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook and all of them. I don't even remember anymore. And we do post a lot on LinkedIn, but we also have currently a very solid mailing list of almost 5,000. And these are good email addresses. So we're communicating with them almost daily, if not at least 3 times a week. So I would invite anyone who wants to see some more information to go to Marlene at snjdc.org and we'll sign you up.
And I'll just say, we always appreciate, have the sound off for South Jersey. Typically in Atlantic City. That's a big help in Atlantic County. And I know Marlene just really does it, especially, and thank you, Marcella, for your comments. I'd love to get the Bumgarner group involved in this effort. And, Marlene and your group does such a great job bringing cabinet leaders in, legislative leaders, legislators, frankly, the folks that we need to lobby, quite frankly. You bring the governors of the past, so you've really done a good job of bringing folks in. And, I think the Development Council has clout, and I think we have to candidly use that clout and flex our muscles. Again, not just for the South, folks. Everybody listening to this, everyone who's on our email list, Tony, we all know people outside of Southern New Jersey. We need to talk to them. Central does exist. I went to Rutgers, Glenn. You got to talk to folks up north because, to Marlene's point, if we're trying to get the numbers to defeat this thing in the State House, we can't just rely on South Jersey alone. Having a quarter legislature against it is a good start, but it's not the finish line. So how can we talk to folks in other counties to get them on board with with defeating this thing and then focusing on developing the economy here in South Jersey. So, Tony, Glenn, Marlene, I really, really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. We'll be in touch, everybody. We have more roundtables coming up. We have one soon on Camden, on housing and economic development down there. We also have one, too, with the Chemistry Council of New Jersey. So we're looking forward to that as well. So SouthJerseyForward.org. And again, please visit StopNorthJerseyCasinos.com. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Michael.
care.